Yeah.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
stream has started. Let's see
Okay.
who accepts it. Twitch has accepted it.
Okay.
YouTube has accepted it. Facebook has accepted it. And
Oops.
WBFO has accepted it. Now, I send you the link.
Okay.
Beautiful.
You could bring your kids on TV on the show if you want to. I'm guessing you don't want to, but anyway. They would brighten up the show considerably, especially with the terrible subject that we have. But anyway.
Vicky, are you going to talk about the Oppenheimer movie?
We will, especially if it's just me and Sameria. If we're down to just me and Sameria, we'll definitely be talking about Oppenheimer. Yeah.
Okay.
But even so, we can talk. Have you seen it yet, Shannon? Or no? No. And Jim hasn't either. Uh-oh. Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
Because I was listening to different critical critiques of the show.
Uh-huh.
And one
Okay.
thing I thought was very revealing is there's nothing in the movie about what Japan looked like after the bomb was dropped,
Uh-huh. That's true.
which is pretty important.
Right.
Like, you know.
Yes, it's very, very important. No question.
And did you know that what the Japanese got irritated about?
No.
They were advertising, go see Barbie and Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
And they're like, you shouldn't put those two things together.
Right. No,
you
they're
know?
quite different. Okay. So I think we're almost ready to go. Can you get me back to the text?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Because I don't know how to operate this thing at all.
We have to change the text or something.
No, I just want to see it. I thought it would help me to
Oh, okay.
see it. If you can put it.
It's on there.
Okay. Good. Good. Thanks. Okay. So. Oops. Okay. So are we?
Yeah. I'm ready when you're ready.
Okay. So. Wait. I'm sorry. Okay.
Have we already
Yep.
asked?
Yeah,
you?
we're ready. We're ready. Okay. Go ahead.
No, I'm not talking. I'm going to talk about people just need to understand this is live radio and this is what it's like. This is not a multi-million-dollar operation, but this
Okay.
is a real operation.
It
bringing
is
the
real.
voice of
Yep. Okay.
Okay. You ready?
Yep.
When it
we're
says
ready.
on the air, you're on the air.
Okay. Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being recorded here at Think Twice Radio in the home of the future, also the home of our friend and producer, Richard Wicca. Thanks, Richard. We also thank our friends at WBNY, Buffalo's original alternative radio station, 91.3 FM. Thank you, Buff State. And as we, especially today on Indigenous Peoples Day, I think of how our Indigenous friends, despite all the trickery and violence and oppression and near extermination that they suffered, there has been, they start everything off with a gnonyo of thankfulness, of remembering Mother Earth and all the creatures and the plants and all the different elements in the world, and the great mystery and the great creator and all the love that makes it all happen. And so then they say Nyahweh, and the people say no. So I'll say Nyahweh.
No. No.
No. Thank you. And so we're very excited. Again, today is, besides being UN declared World Indigenous Peoples Day, it is also the anniversary of the bombing of Nagasaki by the U.S. with nuclear weapons. And nuclear issues are very, very alive and present. And we're very excited about our special guest. So I don't want to waste any more time, but just to go around and to say we are thrilled to have Jim Anderson, who has, again, just more roles and qualifications than I can imagine. That, of course, he's the president of PeaceAction New York State and former board chair at the Western New York Peace Center. He's also the national co-chair of PeaceAction. That's PeaceAction National, and he's joining us from Japan. So I'll just leave it at that because he'll have to leave pretty soon. And then I'm very...
Well, let me just jump.
Go ahead.
I'll jump in the interest of time. I want to thank everyone for their forbearance with us. And I want to thank my fellow presentators on this part for allowing me to go first. I am in Japan.
Wait.
And the reason I am here...
okay. I'm sorry. I just wanted to... Oh, okay. Go ahead, Jim. Sure. Go ahead. Yep.
I'm in Japan, and the reason I'm here is that this is the 70th anniversary memorial remembrance of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And it is also another year in which the Hibakusha, the survivors of the dropping of those bombs, are leaving the planet because they're up in their 80s and they're dwindling down. But this is also an intersectional moment for the world because the world is here and the issues we're dealing with, everybody has skin in the game, whether you know it or not. And I have to pay to the fact that what led up to all of this really starts with our sisters and brothers of the Native American community, from which not only was unceded land taken and people murdered, but the riches of the land were being stolen then. I'll just say that part because they will speak for themselves. And what was done with these resources that were taken was to make the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I want to add something else in, and I want to tell you why it's important at this moment. The Hibakusha have no bombs. They have no airplanes. They have no weapons at all. All they have is the scars and the pains that still upon their bodies and have inflicted generations of their family from what we did here, our nation, United States of America. I want to also quickly say, because the question was raised, was it necessary to drop a bomb? No, it wasn't. Some people might argue, but I have the facts, and you'll hear more on a later show. And I have the evidence. And by the way, if you really study history and read the annals of what happened, the archives that come from our government, you will find that the reason they wanted to move the bomb forward, they moved with the test quickly, and they wanted to deploy the bomb because guess what? Their words, they feared the fact that Russia was about to enter the war. And Japan, knowing that, was prepared and had started to negotiate, prepare to surrender. But the U.S., in their own words, not wanting Russia to have any credibility for resolving this, chose to move ahead with the bombing. When I get home, I'll show you the evidence that supports that. Along with that is the fact that after the bombing, when you think about it, killed innocent people. The weapons that they used were indiscriminate. They were not towards military targets. They were weapons, and as said by our U.S. government in their planning of these weapons, we need a weapon that will demoralize them mentally, kill, just really just destabilize them. How inhumane is that? Well, the Hibakusha who are leaving the planet, they say and they cry in their own words as they begin to depart that yes, it was evil that you reaped upon them, but their resolve to live and tell the story has led us to where we are today. What is the story they told? A consistent report out on what it was like with those weapons and how much damage was done. And they did that all the way through to where, and they, out of their pain, rose up in protest, calling upon everyone to resist and rid the world of these bombs. And the peace movement worldwide heard it. It crystallized into a worldwide movement that here we are, the 78th anniversary, still trying to get rid of these weapons, but we're at the entrance door. For we have passed a ban to bomb, an international treaty known as TPNW. It is the Treaty Against the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. And if you don't know about it, you can start Googling yourself. But when I get home, I have much more to tell about it. Now, let me tell you about that treaty. More than 122 countries have signed it, and it is in force. There is a 10-year window for the nuclear possession states that possess nuclear weapons to try and meet the goal of reducing and ridding themselves of them. This is not anything new, but it is a push forward because the U.S. and other nations made the commitment before to start downsizing. And yet, here we are taking the monies needed for every human need, education, health, not only healthcare, housing, infrastructure building, have been taken from the human needs to give to the industrial military complex, which makes more and more weapons. And right now are trying to create even more designer AI type weapons on which to launch these terrible instruments. We, the people of the United States, have got to wake up. And if you're in any movement, I don't care what movement, whether it's immigration, housing, health, education, and particularly climate, where we're all worried, and I know you know what the weather is like. It's like this here. In fact, we have a typhoon that has already hit us, which I had to leave Nagasaki to come to Tokyo. What I want to tell you is we really got to up our game. In New York, in Buffalo, when the state was going around holding hearing on clean renewable energy, you know, the climate leadership and Community Protection Act, at the hearings, while the people were calling for it, what did the gas companies call for? The gas companies called for the state to invest more in nuclear power. My friends, my family, you must know that nuclear energy is not clean, renewable energy.
Right.
We cannot get away,
Not at all.
nowhere to put it. Right now, they're dumping it in places. I'm going to move quickly to a finale that brings this all together, because you only need a synopsis of what I'm saying. And you can check me, and when I get home, call me out. Right now, nuclear energy is just a footstep away from building nuclear weapons.
Right.
We have got to catch up. The climate movement has been a little bit behind, because even in the hearings around the state, while the climate movement pushed for what is truly needed, what they did not push back on is the gas companies asking for more investment in nuclear power. Where do you think the money is going to come from? It's a shell game. The money they didn't want to give you for the kind of clean energy you want will now be shifted if we allow it. I said, if we allow it. But my organization, PeaceAction New York State, of which the Western New York Peace Center is a stalwart member, we know that peace demands action.
Right.
Peace demands action. And
Yes.
if we don't act, if we don't act, we won't have people or planet on which to come together. The way forward has always been provided by the Native American.
Yes. Yes.
How we should relate not only to the land but to each other. I again want to thank you as I prepare to leave here from Japan. Yes, all who came with me are safe from the typhoon. A typhoon known back home is known as a hurricane. By meteorologists, it's called a tropical cyclone. So my appeal to us, let us learn more. Let us have gatherings of peace discussions on the blocks of our cities, in the parks, wherever we are, with all people. And believe me, it has nothing to do with race, because there's only one humanity, and it is all of us together.
Right.
The people together can make the difference. I love you all. I look to get home safely and be with you and carry on. And I want to tell you, to my young, lovely sister, Sameria, the young people here want to know about Oppenheimer as well, and they're going to be seeing that. I told them once they see it, to write their views about it, and I will ensure that it's published in the U.S. And if you write yours, I will ensure that yours is shared with them. And to all young activists, keep the faith. Don't you grow weary. You are not alone. It's an intergenerational struggle, but believe me, you are the front line of our future. I love you all. Love you, Vicki.
We love you too, Jim.
Continue. I'm going to stay here. Ooh.
No, you're
I'm going to
not.
stay
Because
with it. And that's it. That's all I want to say.
You're going to turn into a pumpkin if you don't
Yes,
go. So don't.
Dash,
So
y'all.
go ahead.
I'm
You
sorry.
can.
But thank you for the time. See you soon.
Thank you
Love.
so much. Peace and love. Love you, Jim. We'll see you when you get back. Okay. So, yeah, he
What a
knew his
strong
time was
message.
short. Very strong. Very good. And here is Dr. Shannon Seneca. So, I'll just introduce her while she's getting on. And then, we'll just see when she's able to get on. So, Dr. Shannon Seneca, is a Haudenosaunee environmental engineer. She is Mohawk, Turtle Clan environmental health specialist, and she's working as assistant faculty at Roswell Park at the Center for Indigenous Cancer Research. She's also an alternate member of the West Valley Citizens Task Force. So we're very excited to have Dr. Seneca here. She and Jim actually were both in a press conference that we held when the Golden Rule came through, which is a sailboat that was used by Quakers to try and stop the U.S. from doing nuclear testing on the Marshall Islands in the 50s. And this is already after they've used it on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So when we say that bombing has not been done, that the U.S. is the only one who's done bombing, we're the only ones who've done bombing, but also all that testing was also very bad. And it was, even though some of the people were evacuated, their land was totally trashed, as we have here when we have nuclear waste all over the place. So, Dr. Seneca, anytime you can join us, or if now isn't a good time and you want to come in a little later in the show, that would be all right too. We have about 40 minutes that we're doing from here. But anyway, it was very good to hear from Jim. And then I want to reintroduce Sameria Mbili, who is here. She is a recent graduate from Canisius College. She headed up Canisius College, PeaceAction Canisius College, which is one of the student groups that PeaceAction is New York State is wise enough and blessed enough to have. So we're very excited about student groups, as Jim was saying, and as we were saying in our previous previous show, that the youth have such a special role and a lot of, the vitality and the knowledge and some knowledge the youth have more than we do.
Oh no.
You
she left.
yeah, no,
Oh.
well, we'll see what happens. So anyway, so we all have our part to play, but the youth part is very big. But the educators part and the doctors part and the people who've studied hugely very specialized things such as Dr. Seneca have a very huge part. So we're going to turn it over to you, Dr. Seneca. If you want to share with us your thoughts today on the anniversary of the bombing and some of the things you want to share about your research and the situation in West Valley. So,
Hi. So
Hi.
my name is Dr. Shannon Seneca. Really hard for that title. Actually, just saying Dr. Seneca got me through some really hard times to be able to finish. So thank you very much for having me here today. And since we had the recital of the Great Law of Peace back in 1992, I had this calling to respond to the environment and our need for our resources being utilized. And so I really was intrigued and interested with radioactive waste and nuclear energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of like brought me down the radioactive nuclear world.
Right.
So in terms of to me, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where it was incredibly important events, this was just the first event. This was the start of the bombing of the world for decades. This is just the very first event that we had to see and endure, and then what ended up happening for decades after that is it just opened up the world to this atomic bomb testing era that lasted all the way through the 1950s and 60s, which include above ground testing, and then also the deep ocean testing and the ocean testing, and it's now covered the entire world in cesium-137. A lot of my work is looking at radioisotopes, where they come from in the environment, how they travel through the environment, and I'm now looking at how that could really impact people's health. And being Indigenous, looking at also how does that impact us when we're really going back to traditional foods and medicine and foraging and collecting things that are in floodplains. So I think that part of what they've done actually is use these populations to say hey, look at this singular event, and maybe we can make some conclusions about what exposure can happen. Look at, we bomb these people, now let's assess their health impact.
Right.
And they've done that, and that's kind of the worst case scenario. But I think it's minimized also this look at long-term low dose exposure that a lot of us are dealing with still today.
Right.
So yeah, that's a little brief introduction. And if we want, are we going to go around and do introduction? I know Richard had to leave.
Yeah. So our just because of timing and the fact that Jim, found that he had to leave, he's in tomorrow already. So that's part of the problem. So I did introduce you and him, and I did briefly introduce Sameria as you were getting on the phone. So we're good on the introductions, and I want to, usually we do this values piece, and I want to say, I mean, we can still do that because, you know, just now about like when we think about, so we've had, he was talking from Japan, and he's been there a couple of times and with the Hibakusha and what they experienced, and he's taught and worked with groups of Hibakusha and people people of the community in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And also getting your perspective. And of course, today it was just in the local front page news about the nuclear waste from the Manhattan Project that's up in Niagara County. And then of course there's the decades and scores long of problems with West Valley. So when we think of all of this, and then he mentioned the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. So when we think of all of this, that's a sort of an introduction. So let us go from introduction into the midpoint of, what are the values that we need to uphold when we are looking at all that information and really devastation and need for action. So, Dr. Seneca, if you want to. I don't know if we lost you or if you can come back on screen briefly, or we can, go to Sameria for now. So what would you put in for a value about that?
A value, I'm just reflecting on the golden rule, and since it
Yeah.
just came to Buffalo,
Right.
I would reinstate that, loving people the way, or treating people the way you would want to be treated, and then just justice for the Hibakusha people. A lot of them are dying off, and it's pretty sad because they were the people that we depended on to be the voices of this movement, acknowledging that they need justice for what has happened to them, and the intergenerational trauma and like the radioactivity that's still in their land. So my main thing is justice, love, and remembering what golden rule stands for, and that's treating people the way you would want to be treated. We wouldn't want bombs dropped on us, and unfortunately the saying goes, you reap what you sow. So if you're going to be dropping bombs on people, I mean, I don't want to say it, but we have to really move with love as a nation.
Well, thank you for all of that. I want to say, in terms of the golden rule, the U.S. has never had any regard for the golden rule in terms of the things that we do, the American exceptionalism. We think the rules should be different for the U.S. than for any other country. Yeah. So that is a huge problem. And, of course, that, that it follows right through to the Indigenous, the UN DRIP, the UN Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People. Mm-hmm. So now say that we have the United States. If some other country came over and said, "Oh, we discovered it," now we'll put up a flag. Now we have our flag is up, so it must be ours. That would not be, that would not fly. Or, I say it. It sounds comical because it is, because it's ridiculous, but it is what happened. Yeah, it's also part of an Eddie Izzard's comedy routine, one of his comedy routines, about the strategic use of flags. But the other thing, when you think about nuclear weapons, that's another area, very big area, where the U.S. feels that the rules should be different for us than for anybody else. We have more nuclear firepower than the rest of the world. Now, I think that we have bombs that are more powerful than some of the bombs that Russia has, because the latest thing I saw, and I think you were I don't know. I think you weren't at that event, but Dr. Charlie
The
Bowman.
panel, I wasn't at the
Charlie
panel.
Bowman, yes, at the panel, he shared something that showed that we, as far as number of nuclear weapons, we had just slightly under Russia, just slightly fewer than Russia, and yet we have more nuclear firepower than Russia. We also have many, many, many more bases all over the world and all of that. We have like 700 military bases all over the world. So we feel that the rules are different for us, that the things that the U.S. does.
I think having nuclear weapons makes us, well, it's in part makes us a great power. And I think Russia also feels as it's a great power because of their nuclear arsenal. But I think someone said, I think it was Jim Anderson, he said, oh no, it wasn't Jim Anderson. It was the captain of the Golden Rule. He mentioned that the real great power is Japan because of the suffering that they endured and how they refused to build up a nuclear arsenal. And
right.
That, in truth, that makes them the great power for their bravery.
Well, and
Despite
they've
what
also
happened.
been more of a peaceful nation than we have in the last many years, ever since. And by the way, I mean they also there's as Jim was saying that they were bombed, that the U.S. did it because they wanted to do it before Russia entered the war. The other thing that I had heard is that the bombing was also because they wanted to test out these bombs. They wanted to see what happened. And so they wanted to do both of them because they were two different kinds of bombs. So that's why they did it. And so if that isn't just criminal,
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a war crime. That is the ultimate war crime. I mean, there are laws about all of that.
Yeah.
So we were just, so welcome back, Dr. Seneca, Shannon. If you would, so we're just talking about nuclear bombs and what and just how, and American exceptionalism and American war crimes. So I think one of the original war crimes might have been the invasion, the original invasion of this country. But anyway, we don't need to go that far back right now. But in this show, in this particular topic, but so what are the values? So we were talking about the values that we have when we think about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and remembering them. So what are the values that you would want to see us remember? What are the values that come to your mind in connection with those?
So I really like the courage and the thought of courage. One of the most interesting things that I learned recently is that the Japanese actually have a much longer lifespan than most. And that they, like she was just saying, have also like a really high ethical standard where they're not going to, go down this realm of nuclear weapons.
Right.
And so I think it's more of a value for human life. That might be debatable if we start talking about Fukushima and the dealing with the wastewater, going into the ocean there. But I really think it's more about courage and resiliency. And I think that's important to know. So we're not maybe as scared as the doomsday clock is, so close to midnight, and we're at the precipice of another nuclear war between the United States and Russia. I think we can at least look back to that to find some kind of hope. That but we also don't want that to like make us okay with them, like using these arms as their muscles.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a difference, and like really focus on like this value of human life. When it really comes down to it, I think like that's the big problem. And like, yeah, so Hiroshima, and I'm gonna keep talking about like this, the whole testing
Right.
of atomic bombs, because I don't think that people are even really aware of how much testing there has been, and
Right.
how much like we have like just dropped the bombs on the planet aside from those two horrific events. Um, so like, we did that to the Japanese, but then we followed up that with like decades of putting our own soldiers, and other like forms of life, like right in line just to see what would happen.
Right.
Like we really have to have a shift in society where human life is, much more higher valued.
Well,
So we could really learn from the Japanese, and maybe that's what we can take it as, like realizing their courage and learning from them on how to be better people.
you're making me think of Junsan Yasoda, who I don't know if you might have met her or you might not have met her. You probably met her. Of course you did. Of course you did. So she did a number of walks coming through around here, and very connected to, to the Haudenosaunee, to, stopping at every reservation, etc. But I'm thinking of some of the Japanese youth and people who came to walk with her, and I remember hearing some of the stories, or even seeing some video of them, taking canoes, and going and sort of facing off against the authorities around the Fukushima, about what they wanted to have done and not have done, so that more for safety. So it makes me think of that, of what you're saying in terms of their courage, and well, certainly in terms of their dedication also to come all the way over here to walk for anti-nuclear walk, with her and with all of us. And the other thing it makes me think of is oh wait, it just slipped my mind. There was that, and anyway, the courage. First of all, the indigenous people have always shown in fighting back against the nuclear issues.
So there was a whole like, then that also was just the plight against Asia, where like the plight against Asians began as well.
Right.
Like
Right,
on U.S.
right.
soil, and I think that they've been like, that was like just the start of like trying to implant a continued bias on another like group of people
Right.
that I think we're still dealing with. A lot of Asian Americans are still dealing with today.
Right. When we had there were it was essentially concentration camps for Japanese people in internment camps in the war. So yeah, it's just a very, but they've shown a lot of courage. Oh, I know what I was going to say is, you were making me think about actually Albert Schweitzer, and he said reverence for life, as the highest value of reverence for life, so that's the whole creation, and for human life, and just a way of doing things differently, which is what we were just talking about, which is what the indigenous wisdom, or I could even just say wisdom, of the people who are the most realized, the most highly evolved souls, have that wisdom of that reverence for life, and that caring and protecting, defend the sacred. That's the other one I think of. And that makes me think of some of the walks that we've done with you all, and that there was a walk that we did right after the first Women's March, and it was called Defend the Sacred. or at least that was it was water is life, but somebody had a sign that said defend the sacred, and that has been to me a big reminder, of what we need to do when we're trying to think, what do we need to do? That is part of it. That's a big part of it.
So I would have to look for it all over again, but there was a couple of videos that have been pulled together on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually show a map of, and it actually will have like a dot based on like the size as well. And it shows all the atomic testing that has happened. The video is only like 5 minutes long, but it shows like what happened over a couple decades, because it was the United States and Russia were the primary ones that were doing a lot of the testing. And they also have the same one for a lot of the ocean testing.
Right.
And then when they outlawed the atmospheric testing, who do you remember who that was? Was that Eisenhower? I don't even know my presidents, but one of them actually it's probably like not even of the same time. Well, I don't know my U.S. history at all.
I don't know either. So yeah,
they outlawed like atmospheric testing, and that's when they started doing like the ocean testing and underground testing, and then they went forward and actually did deep ocean testing. And you know what? That one, I don't know why, but that one like hit me the hardest. Yeah. I don't know if it's just because they rightfully knew like they were already doing so much damage that they went forward and did it anyhow, or because of what, the deep ocean, it's terrible. And like once I think we need to realize like that, and like really it's enough is enough.
Well, it may be because it's the most untouched. So it's as untouched as it would be to pollute it in that kind of just horrific way. It's just,
and there's creatures in the deep ocean that are like hundreds of years old.
Right.
Like there's didn't they find like a 400 or 500-year-old shark in the deep ocean? Mm-hmm. And you're gonna nuke that shark that's been here for centuries. God. And yes, it's tough. So how do we like really, and that golden rule for peace, like there was a small group out there, but like we really need to do more behind that.
Well, well, this is where Oppenheimer can help us, and the golden rule, because the golden rule, I don't know how many stops they made, but I think it was hundreds of stops that they've made, or certainly scores of stops, because they've been stopping, they stop, I think, most nights. I don't think that they're, on the, they're not going, anyway, we could find that out. But thank you for that, because that, I think, when we think about the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, to me, that gives us a leg to stand on. So the world has said that it's illegal. Now, somebody was saying it's not illegal to us if we haven't recognized it and we haven't ratified it, then we're not. Well, that is part of the problem. And we have really structured the UN so that it can't do anything anyway. That's another problem. But, that we as citizens, when we can say, it has been determined by the world, by the majority of the world countries, that it is illegal. So, I'm ready to do some things. I would like to get, I don't know, maybe you can help us if we get some hazmat suits and then go and do some citizens arrests of people who are have nuclear activity. The thing about the waste is it's already there. So can you arrest the people who are cleaning it up? I don't think so. I don't know. This is where I would rely on you for what you think, in terms of that, because that's what we have that we know is around here, right? in Western New York, right? Do you know of anywhere there's any other? I mean, we don't have nuclear silos or any of that. We don't have nuclear bombs being created or any of that now, do we? Or do we not know?
Oh, there's definitely like continued weapons production.
Here?
I think the United States is for sure like continually like
Oh, yeah.
evaluating
Oh,
like their
sure.
own. And in terms of like the Manhattan Project waste, like the West Valley site has part of it, but it's not the only
Right.
one. I know like there's the 4 like areas that probably have the most of the waste. I tried looking for it, but I couldn't find an update. I know like pre-pandemic, the Buffalo district for the Army Corps of Engineers,
Uh-huh.
they were actually doing some projects on Lake Ontario, trying to work with the remediation of some of the Manhattan waste.
Well,
That's like on the shoreline of Lake Ontario.
Well, today it was front page news on the Buffalo News about the nuclear waste on in Niagara County, that they just pledged $40 million out of what they estimate is maybe $500 million of cost for cleanup for that particular area of nuclear waste. That was just in the paper
that's very
today.
exciting.
Yeah,
Wow,
so it's a start.
That's really exciting news.
But 40 million out of 500 million, so it means there's a long, 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 long way to go. But my question is, do we know whether there's, I mean, I know that there's a whole new generation of nuclear weapons that they want to develop, and they want to dedicate, and they've dedicated like trillions of dollars towards that. And that some of them, they want to make them more usable because they think that will be more of a deterrent, which is just insane. I mean, the whole, the mindless, brainless thinking that goes on, because making them more usable doesn't make them less usable. I mean, right? It doesn't, it's just crazy kind of thinking. And so, and then, I mean, you think about the depleted uranium that they were using for shell casings and other things that were causing the Gulf War syndrome, what they called, and so there's all kinds of nuclear waste there, but and then there's all the nuclear plants, which are potential nuclear bombs as well. So it's just, we have such a lot of work to do, but I think part of it is the work that you're doing right now, assessing things. And so why don't maybe if we go around on some of the pieces of the work that we see ahead of us, and, ways that people can help, let's say. So what would you say first, Dr. Seneca?
On a side bit, I was involved with the NAPL Coalition, the Northern Access Pipeline. Yeah, and so that one really got a lot of action involved. There was a lot of people that were really interested.
I was one of them.
And what they actually ended up doing, I cannot remember the name, but like before like any thought of like an action was like thought about, they brought in this group that did a few trainings
I
on
went
peaceful
to some
resistance.
I went to,
and I think that's important. Yeah.
I went to it, and
so
also,
I think like if anything, I don't know. I mean, like, and it kind of gives you that minute to think, like where would I stand? And so I did that training too. And you think like, okay, am I willing to get arrested? Like how far am I? And I was like, I'll make sure you guys have your personal belongings.
Well, I have been arrested twice.
And I'll hold them for you. I don't want to be arrested. I'm like, I'll hold down the fort.
Well, I have been arrested twice And so I think I would, especially now that I'm down to 3 cats and at least I don't have a dog, but I mean we have done trainings for nonviolent civil disobedience or nonviolent civil resistance.
That's
Yeah,
right. That's what it's called.
yeah, well, it's called civil resistance when it's about trying to get the government to follow the law, which they don't do, right? Only selectively doing it, you know. So, I mean, UN DRIP, for example, prior and informed consent. Prior, clear and informed consent. I'm missing one of the variables. Prior, clear and informed consent. Maybe that's it. But anyway, so when they're not giving people that opportunity, you know, that's illegal. Or, you know, anyway, so that, thank you for bringing that up. That's one thing that people can do.
And, you know, and then what is the actual like action that's being taken? And, you know, this recent treaty, I think it's important to kind of get everybody on board.
Right.
But then we also like really, and the same thing comes up with West Valley. You know, when we talk about we want to get rid of this waste and we have to do these cleanups and we have to fix the environment, but really like, where are we going to ultimately put this waste?
Right.
You know, like we have to also start thinking about like long-term like repositories, which we still don't have. So we're demanding waste to be cleaned up and we don't even have anywhere to put it.
Right.
So like really like recognizing the entire like nuclear, like from cradle to grave and realizing what's happening in the like homelands of the people like the Navajo, Dene, you know, and out west that they're having like the mining impacts. And then we have like the waste impacts and what are we going to do with that waste? And in the meantime, like don't nuke the planet.
Right.
And like try to kill everybody.
Oh my God. So what about you, Sameria?
It's so much, you know, like I think it has to be very direct, focused ways to like get people involved. And like with the West Valley issues over the year, like last 10 years, 15 years that I've been involved in West Valley, it's really hard to like keep continued involvement with people.
Right.
And unless you have like actions, and same thing with the NAPL movement, you know, like when people had meetings to attend and like comment periods to respond to, you know, it's a lot easier to like form actions in response.
Right.
But then how do we like actually like have actions against like the nuclear thing, you know, like there's so many things that are the White House is doing right now and their involvement in Ukraine, you know, it's really being steered more in terms of like, we must save Ukraine, but like really like they're the ones that are, the United States are the ones that are pushing us closer and closer to like nuclear war and they're active participants in it.
Right.
You know, like, and we're just like, okay, we're like the American public is too disconnected and too overstressed to even like respond. And it's just, we're just letting it happen. You know, and then I don't know, he just said something about AI equipped to like weapons. That's horrifying. Like that terrifies me.
Right.
You know, like, I don't know.
What about you, Sameria? What would you say?
I would say that we have to strengthen our international cooperation, like talking to the survivors of Hibakusha. I know India has a nuclear arsenal, Pakistan has a nuclear arsenal. The people who are going to be impacted is not the politicians, but it's going to be the civilians.
Right.
From like the nuclear waste, and if these weapons are tested, and if they're actually put into use. So I think strengthening an international network where we can lean on each other as civilians, as people, potential victims of the industry, of the nuclear industry, strengthening our network across borders. And then also, I think all three of us were at the strategic planning at Buff State.
Yes.
The Golden Rule.
We were.
Yeah. And and we found ways. We identified the problem, and then, or we made a mission. We made what was it? The first thing we did, we made
Oh, we had
The vision
our
statement.
vision statement.
Yeah,
Yes,
vision.
and we made
Right.
the vision statement, and then we had to identify active steps. How are we gonna achieve our goals?
Was vision, goal,
Goals, and then
objective,
objectives.
strategy,
Uh-huh.
like that,
Yeah.
which is not unique, but definitely needed.
And then it goes back to what you mentioned about what you had to go through the trainings, and it goes you have to ask yourself, oh, what sacrifices am I willing to put into to achieve our vision? So we have to ask ourselves how much are we willing to commit to achieve a nuclear-free future. And as activists, I guess we have to continue to ask ourselves that question. Are we willing to get arrested? Are we willing to leave our possessions behind? I don't know. Are we ready for that? And if this is what we want, that's what the sacrifice that comes with it.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up in just the way you did, because one of the things that people can do is we're going to continue meeting that group. So there was a planning group, there was a core group of planners that was really a hybrid of the Western New York Peace Center and Veterans for Peace. Some actual veterans, which Jim is, by the way, Jim Anderson is, and some who are associate members. But anyway, so that was a core group, and some of those people, and plus were at the strategic planning session. But so anyway, that people will be invited, and that'll be, we'll have it. I think we're not going to meet until after Labor Day. But so that'll be on the Western New York Peace Center website, and we can put it out with email or with social media and things like that. So that's one thing that people can do. Thank you for reminding me, because, of course, I have given those trainings before of civil disobedience or civil resistance trainings, and I've done it before. And there's different roles, too. So not everybody is, first of all, it's always risking arrest. You don't know if you're going to get arrested or not. Sometimes what they do is they don't arrest you. Or sometimes what they do is they arrest the people who weren't willing to be arrested, and not the people who were willing, to be arrested. And actually, the second time I was arrested, I was the police liaison, and I was the first person they arrested. Although I will say that at the end of that, all of the arrests were thrown out of court. So because they were obviously out of control, the police. That was in Syracuse. But anyway, so those are some things that people can do. And we can think about what else we might want to do, that we, need to lobby our elected officials. And maybe you don't need to do that. I know a lot of Indigenous people feel like, that's your problem, with your elected officials. They're not our elected officials. People like, Brian Higgins or, the either senator or something like that, but we can, lobby people. We can have petitions and things like that. So there's a lot of different pieces, and we were talking about them in that strategic planning session. So people can get involved in that, and then from that, there'll be more invitations for people to do everything from signing petitions to being in a lobby visit to even, going at a rally or a march, which a lot of times is connected to the civil resistance that is coming, and then it's just made very clear for people where you need to not be standing, when people are risking arrest. So we do have.
And I love the idea of doing the expanded international network.
Yes. Yes.
If there's a way to kind of grow it off of the strategic plan and the group that's already going. And
absolutely.
And I love that we're setting up all of these electronic groups. But one of the things I keep pressing for, and I have not had the time to be able to do it, is to actually like be building like a hard copy of like these networks that we're creating and ways to contact people. Like really, like, yeah, we have people's email or social, but like what we really like need to do is like kind of have like an old school phone book,
Sure.
like
Oh,
where we're
sure.
actually like have a different backup way to get a hold of people. And I think that also helps strengthen, and get you a little deeper connected.
Yeah.
And like this
Yeah,
is really a global issue,
absolutely.
so like, and if we can have like really like different groups that are like really like kind of focused on the same vision but in different places, and then maybe even pick up like smaller areas. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. But it's we definitely have to get like more youth involved, and
Right.
that's a way to do it too. And like I think they could also like help grow like things in like a positive way. I'm all about like driving policy changes, and using like science. So like I've definitely done like marches, and participating in other things, but like at the point where I'm at now, like I'm all about using the science,
Yeah.
Great.
to be able to
Good.
combat, like
Well, that's
It
things. So
shows
have
that
different like think tanks, like kind of, fall out of these strategic groups
so
and plans. So I think it's also just a starting point.
so that is one of the reasons why we need you so much. So, which we absolutely do. And that's one of the reasons why we need you so much, too. So, I'm going to say that is, we're in process. Those connections, even the international ones are in process. That's how Jim is over there in Japan. We're virtually out of time now. So, it's been a great show. I mean, just it's sort of reflecting just the bigness, the huge nature and pervasiveness of this big problem. But this is really, in so many ways, this is just a huge part of what we need to do, and we're doing it. So we're making the path by walking it. So I can't thank you enough, Shannon, Dr. Seneca, for coming on. It's so great to have you. Sameria, so great to have
Thank
you.
you for having
We didn't talk about Oppenheimer at all. I'm going to say to everybody, go see it, and then maybe we'll have a special show just about Oppenheimer sometime, because there is plenty there, but there's plenty more. So I'm just couldn't be more grateful. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much. And Jim and everyone. And so onward, we're going to get there. So Nyahweh.
No.
And this is Talking Peace.
And
No. And this is Talking Peace. And together we've been talking peace in truth and love. Thank you so very much. Okay, that's a wrap. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Dr.
I hope your
Awesome.
kids, did you get them to bed in the middle? Or no? Or you're putting them to bed now?
No, my connection was just going in and out.
In and out, in and out. Well, anyway, we thank you so much for all your help when the Golden Rule was here
Yeah.
and now and every day, all the good work you're doing. So more to follow.
Awesome.
Thanks a
Thank
jillion.
you.
Yes, thank you.
Big
Talk to you
hugs and
soon.
love.
Nice meeting
See you.
again.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you. Okay,
Then there was.
that was that.
Mhm.
We did it.
We did it.
Yeah.
We were missing 2 people, but we got through. We didn't get to talk about.
Well, so Martha Hennessy was sick. That's why she had a fever. She didn't feel good. She forgot.
I think something's going
So
around.
that's what happened with her. What?
I think something's going around. I think BBC said that the COVID rise or something like that. I don't know. I think they're trying to scare us.
Well, thank you, Richard. Thank you so much. That was never a dull moment. So that last show was a little bit more discombobulated than
Yeah,
usual.
I thought it was gonna be the first show, but
What?
I thought the first show was gonna be a little more.
No, that was very
smooth
very
sailing.
routine kind of thing. But this one was quite discombobulated because, first of all, when we're off the air now, right?
I'm shutting you down.
Oh,
Stand by.
okay.
No.
Oh, I wish you shut me down a minute ago. Can you unshut me? Can you shut me down retroactively?
It's okay.
No, well,
This won't be on the video. Oh.
it won't be on the radio show. It will be on the video.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think.
Shutting you down.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble shutting down now.
No, it's too late. Yeah. I said what I said. That's what he said.
Well, can't you just like edit it?
No,
No.
no. I don't know how. Richard, you don't know how to edit something that's gone.
Once it goes live, it's in the hands of Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.
Right.
It's out of our hands.
Right. Well, I mean,
You didn't
anyone
say
can
anything
see it was a
bad.
little bit. No, I didn't say. I
Yeah.
said that. Are we still in the air?
I'm shutting you down.
We just won't stop.
Oh dear.